founded in this division, founded in 1876. There's some, I look back at it and think about what are the important historical times in the history of the organization. And probably a big one was purchasing the building that we have, the former church. And there's a little dispute whether it was 1906 or 1907. The documents, City Hall, say one thing, and Pat Murphy says another. So I tend to think Pat's got the right number. At any rate, 1906, let's use. Purchasing of the former Congregational Church in 1906. It had been moved to Wellington Avenue previously, and it was purchased then, and it kind of set the tone for the next 100 years, if you will. So probably the next important thing, that the organization grew and then waned a little bit back and forth during the early 1900s. But 1950s, this fellow Dennis Collins came along, and he was really a spark plug.
Old Denny was a retired chief, and he was a Hibernian. He joined Hibernian, and he got all the guys down here to join. And I know my brother, Bart, knew the rest of them, because I was married then. I came down a little help. But they used to come down there and started doing the place over. And they fixed it up pretty good. And Denny was a great guy. He worked hard for us. And then he became sheriff. And politics-wise, otherwise, went along. It was great. In a few years, everyone on the council was Hibernians. That's when the people up in Beverly Avenue didn't like us. They thought we were the Irish Mafia. I'll never forget those years. Those were good years. Bobby B, Ray Carr, Jimmy Ring, they were all on the council, Hibernian Council. And boy, did that burn those people up to town. They fought hard to get rid of us, but we still stayed in there. And there's still a lot of us after that there living there. So, I mean, it's been great all these years.
We wouldn't have a hall today if it wasn't for Denny Collins. He was the man. And all the pots and pans, he had connections over the bay, some of them. We had more pots and pans than any bar in Newport, right? Any restaurant, right? Through the Navy.
1948, it came from exactly. I come in here, Hibernians, and most of the Hibernians those days belonged to the post office, because the president before me was there for 30 years. So that's anybody who wanted to get a job in the post office, join the Hibernians. But anyway, I come in there with Denny Collins, and we started up again with all of us and redoing the hall a little and having all parties and everything else to keep the place going. And we rebuilt the place as much as we could. And we kept on getting a few good members. We finally went along and along for years and years. And after a while, it went down a little, but then we worked so hard and kept it here. We were offered a lot of times a lot of money for this corner. And they were going to move us down, further down Wellington Avenue, but we fought that and we finally won that. We stayed right here where we were, because always in my mind was that someday I told the boys, I don't want to be standing on that corner and tell somebody that's where the Hibernians were. We're here today, and we've done well, and all the boys have done well. And it's been a lot of years, a lot of hard years, but we had a lot of good times. The St. Patrick's Days, the floats, all the works we did for years and years and years. It's a lot of memories and a lot of old friends that were here that are gone, and it's been good. And I've been here, let's see, almost 60 years, I guess. And I'm lucky I'm still here, and all my sons have joined here. It's just a downtown institution. And and we want to keep it here, I hope, and everything's been well. I can't ask for anything more.
Peter Lozon, Smiley, whatever, right? I came in about 50 years ago. And none of this building was here at the time. None of this, the bar, none of this was here. All we had was the other side. And we used to have a meeting maybe once a month, and that was it. They used to get like 2 cases of beer for the meeting, 25 cents. They used to throw you a quarter into the plate, okay? And that was it till the next month, unless they had a rental. Very few rentals. And the St. Patrick's Day Parade, that's paid all the day. Jay was, he was a lawyer in town. He had, I think he was in with Connie Moore and that gang up there, right? And he was president. And like I said, once a month we'd have the meet, 2 cases of beer. And the parade, that was another thing, right? The parade, everybody and their brother used to come in for the parade, and it got to be a problem. And the people that used to march, the Hibernians, the first couple of years, that marched in the parade, were all half in the bag, all right? And people used to come to the parade, watch the parade, just to watch the Hibernians march. Kind of the liquor, okay?
Yeah.
Okay? That's when Tom Finn got into the action. I don't know if you remember Tom Finn. And he laid the law down. That was it. Blue blazer, the whole bit. No drinking. Absolutely none. If we caught drinking, he was in charge. He was going to pull you right out. And after that, everything worked out great. We started getting respect after that. Before that, we didn't get no respect.
96. I know there have been a lot of discussion about what happened, but Lard Dugan was president previous 2 years before and pushed to have the national convention. There had been one before, by the way, back I think in the 1930s there was a national convention here. But this was a big deal, and again, I was not on board, but all very interesting stories about how it went, the difficulty.
National dinner and everything else. Already Dugan, he gets sick over it. I don't blame him because he worked so hard. He just
Involved in that, and that was, we worked 2 years on that thing, okay? And it ended up, everything went.
Well, you had-
Everything was good.
You had hurricane warnings,
Bad.
if I'm not mistaken, is that correct?
Hurricane warnings. The biggest mistake they had a clam bake, and they had it over to Rhode Island, the tent. And you had to have a special ticket to get in there. People were showing up without tickets and the whole bit. And then some people were coming with tickets. They didn't have enough lobsters, they had nothing. The hurricane was coming up the coast. And one of the big things about the Hibernian convention was they planned for so many people, okay? They had the numbers and all that. And double amount of people showed up coming into town to go to the convention, right? There's no rooms, there's nothing. People are all upset. They didn't even register, but they come in, thought they could register. Nothing, right? Now they're all upset. See? And they were doing a lot of work, fixing up the rooms and all that. So they booked the rooms for the convention, people coming in. Some of the rooms didn't have a doorknob on them, okay? People raising hell, especially the ladies, right? Poor Lord Dugan, he was the man, right? He had to go hide because they were about ready to throw him off the bridge. Lord had to give a lot of money back, the whole bit, to keep him quiet. And they had the Rhode Island Philharmonic Orchestra. I think it was down to I think it was the Marble House, but out on the lawn. Mike Bean, gang, they put up the stage. Now the hurricane's coming in. The last hour, started veering off. Then what happened, it flared up, and you went, most beautiful sunlight or no sunset you ever see in your world, right in front of us. It's the only thing went right with that today.
But still, it made a place. It pointed out that we were a thriving organization. And that was a great, I think that was an interesting moment. In 1983, when it was decided, the previous year was decided to expand the hall, and we had a little appendage, if you will, in the back was a bar. Really small and dank and smoke-filled, and it was really quite a place. Of course, we had no liquor license, and that was another little problem with that. We solved that eventually. At any rate, '83, we opened up the lounge, more or less in the shape and size as you see now. And we had a great ceremony with Governor Garrity, which came.
Lard was responsible for this room here.
It's an alley like Lard.
Lard, he used to do all the cooking back there. He was just a character. Lard, he's a good friend of mine.
When my daughter Patty got married, she's the second oldest one. She'll be 60 this month.
But don't say that, we're on camera.
But we had, she got married, and we had all the boys said, well, we'll have a reception down here. Well, this place, the outside didn't look too good. But the inside, when they got done with it, the inside, they had Eddie Dugan. He went to Johnson and Wales too. He was a hell of a cook. Harry Canini, all the boys were in there. They had the buffet inside. And we had the band out here, the big tent. And they were so amazed, those people from Providence. We had Jimmy Mahoney there. He was tending bar, all the politicians. They're amazing about all the politicians. And I'll never forget the day because I was sitting there, and John Brady's father, Frank, was a hot shit. He was a big politician of Providence. And he introduced me to all these people. And he says, Mike, I want to introduce you. This is Judge Murphy. I know him, he's my uncle. So,
Came in, and the lounge was dedicated to Lard Dugan, who had done so much through the years for the hall. He had died in a car accident just previous to that, so it was decided to dedicate the hall to him. And you'll see in the hall a picture of the dedication with the governor and at the time State Senator Bob McKenna. And to me, that was kind of the next step. The next important phase was the total renovation of the hall. Opened in 2005. An article here in the Newport This Week paper talking about the opening celebration we had in February of 2005. Doesn't seem possible, but it's that many years ago. It was a wonderful job done by hours and hours of volunteer work by so many of the members.
My name is Bill Murphy, and I've been a hibernian for over 20 years. I was brought in by Norman King, who was a custodian at Rogers High School when I was a math teacher at Rogers High School. He was a former president of this organization. I was impressed with all of the people that belonged to the organization and the works that they did. The memory that most encapsulates what I feel about the organization was the day of the Big Dig, which was one of the focal points for the new construction. And we're down in an earthen basement with buckets on a pulley, digging dirt out, making the basement deep enough so that we can support a second story and create a walk-in basement. There were scores of members there, and even non-members who became members, as often is the case. People work on projects that are important to the community that we start, and they become involved and become members, both full-time members and associate members. One of the more vivid pictures I have is you saw the members who work in the building trades. They were in full battle gear, overalls, boots, work boots, swinging picks, digging shovels. And you also saw members who were in the service industries, down in the hole with tassel loafers and no socks, swinging picks and shoveling to dig out our basement. That's the breadth of this organization. It touches the full stretch of the community. And that's why Dennis E. Collins, Ancient Order of Hibernians, is an extraordinary organization. And that's the memory that firmly fixes in my mind.
And hats off and credit goes to Harry Winthrop, who was president the previous couple of years, who had the vision and the insight to push for this and got it approved, and we went ahead. We borrowed something like $400,000, and people were aghast at that. Members were, my Lord, how are we going to handle this? But it was done beautifully, and as Chris Curran kept saying, build it, people will come, you're going to build it. Of course, the membership has expanded tremendously since that time, so what a great job that was. This is one of the group of young girls that we had, through the years, we had sponsored by way of donating the hall for a dancing class for the Irish step dancing classes. The Hibernians have a long history of involvement with sports, and this picture is evidence of that one piece. 1903, this from the Newport Daily News, actually, and a story about the Hibernian racing crew. Actually, there were two boats raced. Division I and Division II raced against each other. And the winner raced against the Navy. Well, these victorious Division I, well, didn't do too well against the Navy, but that's all right. It was a great event. Golfing has always been a big part of the Hibernian organization. This picture shows Ed Lard Dugan and Harp Donnelly at a golfing event. Based on 1927, 1928. Hibernians basketball champions of Rhode Island State. And here we have 3 Sullivans and 3 Shays on the team, along with Harringtons, Butlers, Grady.
Active women's organization. I'd say 10 years ago, 12 years ago, you might have had 20 women here, probably the average age 75, and that might be on the young side. But they were the ones that were here before those women. It was Mrs. King. She was national president for a long time out of this small thing. Now they're a very big organization. They give us, as far as I think, it would be the largest woman organization in the city, and they are equal to the men. Men own the wall, but they are very active, and I would imagine there's probably 250 anyways there. And it's been great for the last few years, how they've, come into their own, and it's, the average age now is, I wouldn't want to say, but it's under 50 anyways, and probably close to mid-40s. The girls are like that, I said that. But,
I'd like to also throw out kudos to our ladies AOH division, which I believe right now, perhaps 250 members, may be the largest women's organization in the United States. And they've been tremendous here, not only part of this celebration, but with their scholarship efforts, their charitable efforts, and they've been fantastic. So I want to throw out a little kudos to them as well. They've been fantastic. Caroline Booth, who's their recent president, who's now president of that division, has done a wonderful job. We've worked together on many different projects, and it's great to have the women and the men and the families and everyone come together to exceed our goals and to fulfill our motto, which is friendship, unity, and Christian charity.
I've been a member for 21 years. It makes me proud to be from Ireland, my family to be from Ireland, and to be part of the Newport scene, especially being from Middletown and being a picker. But being part of this organization is one of the, I would have to say, one of the crowning achievements of my life, besides being a United States Marine.
My name is Peter Martin. I'm the Vice President of the Hibernians for the state of Rhode Island. I've enjoyed being in Hibernians. I've enjoyed all the charity work that they do. I love the Christmas masses we have here, the football games on Sundays, and the socializing. What I find out being a Hibernian, it was the quickest way for me to get to know a lot of good people in the community and get to enjoy them. One of the big advantages of being a member of Hibernians is we work together to help people, we pray for people, we not just pray for people, but when somebody passes on, we show up at the wake and we give support to the family. We are very charitable to people that are in trouble. One thing about the Hibernians, I think a lot of the charity is not public, it's not well known, it's like we quietly help people.
When I became old enough to join, I joined in September of '72, and I was the first third active generation in this division. My grandfather and Bob Beatty was the vice president at the time, and he swore me in. Neil Sullivan was the president, and unfortunately this is my home. This is part of my life. It's a major part of my life. To a very good sense. It's such a community-oriented organization. One of my favorite things down here, and my children, who are now in their early and mid-20s, my two daughters, beautiful daughters, I started bringing them down here when they were under 10 years old for our Christmas Mass, and that's something that they look forward to. My children look forward to that every single year, and I think that's one of the best family things that we do down here is our Christmas Mass. It's a sanctioned Mass. We have it here in the club. It's something that I look forward to every single year. The club looks beautiful. It's adorned with magnificent flowers, and last year, for instance, in 2010, there was an infant, a brand new, the child couldn't have been a couple of months old, from the youngest up to a gentleman in his 90s. And then everybody in between, and family. That to me is one of the highlights of what we do down here. I love that, the family-oriented stuff. Our community service that we do down here, many people don't realize that, and certainly we do not. We don't look for the accolades say in the press and all that kind of stuff, because that's not the way we are. We do what we do because it's part of our friendship, a Christian charity, friendship, unity, and Christian charity. Our motto. That's what it's about. You don't need to see a write-up about the Hibernians did this for so and so, or the Hibernians did that for some family. We do it because it's what we do. Who was a major influence for me down here at this club was my great uncle, Raymond Burns, my father's mother's brother. My grandmother, Mary Lynch, was a Burns. Well, I'm being interviewed right now in our library. It's named in honor of Raymond Burns, who was our historian. He was our first life member, granted by the National Division national organization for this division. And Raymond, he was a bachelor all his life, and he lived a great life. But he was so well-read, very well-read, World War II veteran and all that stuff, but very well-read. He was our historian. And there's a picture in this room that we're in that really tells a lot about what Raymond was like. He had such a green thumb. He started all the flowers that surround this place, the outside of our building, our clubhouse now. And he did this years ago. He was so into gardening and everything else.
I'm a member of the AOH for, let's see, that makes 35 years. I soon learned to love the place. I'd come in here and with the old timers. The old timers were quite a crew. And of course, my father was very well respected, former president, and he was kind of Denny Collins's protege, actually a pallbearer at Denny Collins's funeral. But the old timers, I walked in, and boy, as an 18-year-old kid among a bunch of adults, I thought I would think I would be kind of ignored, but they were all good guys. The Neil Sullivans, all type of guys there. The Ray Burnses, Pat Murphys, and George Newberrys, the Charlie Elliots, the Marty Shea. That was my introduction to our organization of, and our credo, which we live by, is friendship, unity, and Christian charity. So I soon, after that, became very involved in the club with my dad, and my dad was at that time probably starting to phase out a little, but my older brother Michael had been a president. My other brothers all were members, and one point I just want to make out about my father. I'll never forget, in 1984, my brothers and I all played rugby for the Newport Rugby Club. I was one of the founding members, and we had my dad, we did a photo to go on the back page for Bean Brothers, my brother's business. And we all sat there. There were 4 of the 6 brothers were going over with my dad. And my dad told us, remember boys, that you're Americans first and you're Irishmen second. I fought for this country, so when we go over there, always remember, don't go running around that you're Irishmen. You're American first. So I went into this whole organization knowing that I was the mentality that I was still an American, a Catholic, but with a very important heritage of Irish our Irish heritage and culture. And I want to make sure that we get that, because we're not a bunch of people running around saying we're Irishmen and that we're, it's a little different. This is all part of the community aspect. But then going back to my dad was we were all Catholics. I mean, we had to go to church. My dad was, and my mom. I don't want to leave my mom out. But I'll be talking mostly about my dad because we're talking about the Hibernians and that. But we grew up with that mentality of God, church, country, community. And when I was a young child, I learned about the Ancient Order Hibernians and Hibernian Hall. My earliest memories would be we would go down to the hall, which was much different than it is now, and Christmas parties or maybe other special occasions, St. Patrick's Day parade, and we get to go around and play with all the other kids, and it seemed back in those years, back in the 60s, there were just so many more kids, and I used to have a blast down there. So my early memories were meeting all these other kids, having fun, and that. And then, you know, my father would instill in us, again, the importance of being patriotic, being religious, being a good Catholic, and community. And the Hibernians became a part of our community. And I soon learned that this was something special in my dad's life, and of course, like any child, things that are important in a father's life are curious or become important to a child. And as we grew up, my father would talk about these things, and it was obvious he was very, very proud of all of this, including being a member of the Ancient Order of Hibernians. And my dad led by example. He was somebody who went to church all the time. He didn't wear religion on his sleeve, but it was obvious it was very important to him. And of course, the Hibernians, many people outside of this organization believe the organization is a bunch of Irish Catholics, Irishmen who, at the corner bar. And they don't realize that the Catholicism, the protection of our Catholic faith is a huge, huge part of our entire existence down here. And the beauty of all of this, and maybe I should have said this at the beginning, but remember, this is a social Irish, this is a very important organization of, Irish Catholics. And the marvel of this, the real marvel of this, is that in little Newport, Rhode Island, for 135 years, this division has sustained. 135 years. And that's amazing. And just, for little Newport, Rhode Island, 25, 50,000 people. It's amazing that we've been able to last as long as we've been able to.
My first recollection of Hibernian Hall is when I was a little scully, like maybe this high, with my grandfather, and we came down here for a cookout down at Hibernian Hall, and I couldn't believe the view of the harbor that we had. There used to be big oil tanks that were down here, but we had a clear view of the harbor. I've always felt that it's a magical place. There's nothing like Hibernian Hall that I've ever met, ever been to, ever gone to, and probably ever will go to in my whole life. It's a very special place. There's been generations of Newporters that have gone through this place, and That's why I am involved now as the current president, and very honored to be the current president of the AOH down here in Newport. I have been a Hibernian, well, when I first became a Hibernian, I believe it was 1973, right after Timmy Lynch, and he always reminds me of it, that I was the second, third generation Hibernian. But the Hibernian Hall to me just means so much. It's just the epitome of being Irish Catholic in Newport, to be a Hibernian. And I am so honored to be the current president of Hibernian. I was asked by a lot of different members if I would step up. I've always been behind the scenes, just like my father was always behind the scenes. And it came to a point that enough people asked me to step up and become an officer that I did. And now I happen to be proudly serving as the president of Hibernian, and I'm completely honored to be the president of Hibernian for the 135th anniversary celebration. This time I ever had at the hall, I truly think it's the first time I was at the hall. Because I had always heard about Hibernian Hall as a little kid. And then I finally came down here and experienced it as a little kid. And it was just so cool just to see, you know, everything, all the older people that were down here came before me. But I always hark back that Hibernian Hall is a very magical place, and it'll always have a magical place in my heart. I am so honored to be the president of this club, Ancient Order of Hibernians, Tennessee Collins Division, number 1, Newport, Rhode Island. What I am hoping, what I am praying for in the future is we keep building on what we have now. We're one of the largest divisions in the country, but more importantly, we are a division that really cares. We are a division that has a lot of members that volunteer for the myriad of events that we have down here. We want to continue to build on this. We want to get stronger. So when my son, who is 18, and he joins, and his son of the future, when he comes up, we just continue this wonderful Newport tradition of having a very strong Ancient Order of Hibernians, Irish Catholic organization in Newport. One of the best things we do as Hibernians, as Newport Hibernians, is we support a lot of different charities and organizations. And we don't ask for anything in return. We feel that it's our obligation as Irish Catholics to support people that need help. And we have done that for many years, and we will continue to do that.
It's a great bunch of guys, great organization, very heavily interested in preserving Irish history, not only in Newport, but in general. And I found my niche here, doing Irish history, and it's very receptive. It's a wonderful bunch of guys. I'm very proud to be a member. This is a fine part of Newport, fine organization. A lot of respect is accorded to members, despite Irish stereotypes and a lot. People do understand around town the good and the charity and the historical preservation that we do here. And very, very proud. Again, I can't say how much I'm proud to be a member of the Hibernians. We're in the 5th Ward one time had a nickname, and many people still do. And sometimes that's the only way you can tell them apart. One Sullivan from another, or one Murphy from another, are by the nicknames. And coming from a family that's much smaller, I haven't had a nickname until fairly recently. It's a lot here, a lot tied up in the history of Newport and the history of Rhode Island, in this organization, and it's amazing. Going back to Catholicism, again, this is the 100th anniversary of St. Augustine's, And there are a lot of ties, not only between membership, between St. Augustine's and the Hibernians. The Hibernian Hall served as the early church for St. Augustine's, and then during the fire that occurred at St. Augustine's, I believe in 1957, Hibernian Hall again was the church. So, yeah, we are totally tied up with the Newport community, not the Fifth Ward, but the close relationship with St. Augustine's and the other churches. It really is easy to see why this is one of the largest divisions in the country. The Irish spirit, the Catholic spirit that is here, are just so strong and so appealing to people that, it's like a magnet. I think if this was an organization that was less committed to our causes, I think we'd see a much smaller membership. And it says a lot for all the brothers and the sister Hibernians over the years, that this organization has maintained a high level of Irish sensibility, Catholic sensibility. That makes it unique. Hibernians on themselves are a unique organization. The largest fraternal organization for Catholic men in the United States, with its ties back to the ancient order of Hibernians in Ireland, which kind of mysterious sort of secret society. And looking back, even the pride in our heritage as national Hibernians, the fact that the organization was formed to protect Catholic churches from the nativist know-nothing mobs of the 1830s and 40s, says a lot. Again, that commitment is still in this organization.
Fox Donnelly was president, and Fox asked me, if I wanted to join, and I said yes. And we had maybe, at that time, we had 70 members. I would say that, 80 members, and that about 30 of them were active. I mean, this hall was a mess. I mean, you can't believe. I marvel at what these guys have done to this place, because they made a club out of it. It was, before that, it was just it was a mess. The rugby, they changed the whole nature of this club, because they got money in it, they got members, right? And they just go-getter young guys, that really brought the club into its own. I mean, today, with the money we got coming in, I mean,
I've been here for almost 60 years.
Yes, yeah.
Probably one of the oldest members in the club.
Right, him and Mike Van, right?
Well, Mike Van's still living, that's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mike Van.
Yeah.
Mike Van got his 25-year pin when he had 50 years.
Yeah, well, we weren't giving them out too quick. No,
that was the funniest thing.
You had to go ask for it. Don't we get a pin or something?
Yeah, for 25 years.
And we used to swear everybody in. We used to get a 3 colored thing and get a pin to be sworn in. I was the treasurer for 14 years.
Yeah, right.
And when we used to meet in the hall, we didn't have the lounge out here. That was an after.
Is that why the books went bad?
That's right, exactly correct. That's why I got
I'm joking,
my house,
folks.
I know. But if you came in with gloves on and a wool hat in the summer, in the winter rather, and a heavy jacket, you never took it off because we didn't have any heat. We had those blowers up in the ceiling. And then we got a couple of Denny Collins, who this division's named after.
Right.
Somebody came in one night and said, can I use the restroom? And he says, it's not a goddamn restroom, it's a head. He was a chief in the Navy.
Yeah.
And he identified it as what the language that they used in the Navy, yeah. A lot of people that joined with me were in really a young age group. And a lot of us had been into the Boy Scouts for years. And so we used to meet down here. And one of the Scoutmasters was Ali Eads. And we used to meet here at the Hibernian Hall. Yeah, Paul Rally. He used to take us over the camping and along. We used to pull all sorts of tricks on them and raise hell, the fresh kids and stuff like that. But when we moved up and got older and into the 20s and stuff, we were really competing against a lot of the older guys that now are in the 60s, and they had this place for themselves. Now a bunch of youngsters are jumping in there, and so it was good. But it was very close, sincere place. Everybody helped one another. In our creed, you never to defame a brother. That was it was pinpointed right away that if you don't start any trouble with brothers and you got a problem, go talk to them, you know. And we didn't have a whatever Gary Gagner's thing is.
Grievance.
Grievance, yeah. We didn't have grievances at that time. Yeah, they were whack you in the mouth and probably shut you off from the beer cooler, and that was it. Straighten up and go. Well, I think that it's a different group of people here. First of all,
Yes, totally.
The eminence really was a native Newporters or byproducts of their parents that came over, etc., etc. They were very tight. Nobody had big jobs at all. They're all working people. In fact, we had and we still do, have a significant class of people here that are skilled mechanics, carpenters, painters, engineers, electricians, etc., etc., etc. And from that is what we went and we had we renovated that hallway out there and did this and put the lounge in here and had a dedication. You need me?
Irish Catholic heritage, you know, that I grew up with, and my grandparents were very Irish. My mother's mother, and I'm just proud, as you know, that they have an organization like this, that we can project ourselves out onto the community as being Irish, you know, and also as being Irish Catholics, you know, and that is, you know, is part of our, you know, thing. I mean, Catholicism really is the backbone of our organization.
It certainly is.
First memories of the Hibernian Hall were back in the 70s. My uncle was president down here at one point, Jim Mahoney. He had gotten married down at St. Augustine Church, and they had the reception there. The hall was a lot smaller back then. There was no back end of it. And the top half, it was one floor. And I remember the big tent out back, being a little kid running around. I remember it was a dirt lot behind here. I remember some of the politicians had come, because my uncle was a politician back then. I remember the helicopter landing, Governor Gary, he had come to the reception, which was a big thing. I think back then, though, he might have been a lieutenant governor back then. I remember it was a big reception. That was my first memory of the hall, and I just remember being a kid growing up down this end of town. It was always like a big thing, the Hibernian Hall. It was kind of really secretive for kids, and everyone always kind of wondered about it. As I got older and got into college, I had mentioned some interest in it to Charlie Searcher Burns, who was a member down here, and he was the past president. And he said, "Oh, I'll get you in as a member." He always kidded me a lot about it, but he finally did get me into the hall, and he's a great guy, Charlie Burns. He's a good member and good president down there. Many years ago, when I became a member, there used to be an oar hanging on the wall in the back, and it had a shamrock on it. It had a picture of the English yacht that raced in the America's Cup, and the picture had a big lion on the back of the ship, and it had shamrocks pasted in peculiar places of the lion itself. But I had asked about the paddle one time, and when I was a new member first coming in, they said, "Oh, that paddle comes down for the new members. You're going to get to know it really well, that paddle," to try to scare me a little bit, just jokingly. And later on, I inquired about it, and I had spoken with one of the members, and they said, way back when, 2 members from the hall here hopped in a canoe and paddled out to this America's Cup yacht that was out there, that was an English yacht at the time. Took these shamrock stickers and stuck it in these certain set places on the yacht, including the lion, right over maybe the lion's private parts or whatever, as a joke, and took pictures of it and wrote it. And one of those members, I guess I could say it now because I'm sure it's, since he's long since passed, he wouldn't be, it was Charles Searcher Burns. That was the type of guy he was. He just had that kind of sense of humor that funny like that. That story always makes me laugh when I think of it.
They've made us proud. Wonderful organization, great music. They travel all around the Northeast here, representing the Hibernians in Newport. Done a wonderful job.
This new influx, with the pipe band and with the, and there's nothing wrong with it. Believe me, it's really good for us.
It's good.
Because it is
The
providing.
mixing of genes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I want to also applaud our Newport AOH Pipe and Drum Corps. being the fine Irish Catholic organization that we are, the pipe and drums are going to lead us down Thames Street for a, you might call a mini parade as we go to St. Augustine's Church, 5 o'clock Mass.
Fondest memories as a Hibernian, no question, are the years spent involved volunteering on the annual Hibernian Family Christmas Mass here, held at the hall every year with the permission of the bishop. It's a sanctioned Mass, as we all know, and it's just great fun to get involved with that, help out with the Mass and with the preparation. Great thanks goes out to Father O'Loughlin, who for years has celebrated the Mass for us here at Hibernian Hall, and it's just a wonderful tribute, brings together the community of Hibernian members and our families, but it also brings others from the community, not necessarily Hibernians, who come and enjoy Mass with us on Christmas time or near Christmas, and that's a great memory for me, as is the annual Christmas for the youngsters that are put together by the Lady Hibernians in coordination with us here as the AOH. What a great memory that is as well. Many community-based activities that once again adds to our great reputation as a solid community-minded organization, and those are definitely two of the best memories that I have of my membership here at the Hibernians. Happy 135th anniversary to the AOH Newport and to all our friends, members, and family.
This is a storied place. I mean, this is just an unbelievable place. It's just a wonderful place that we have here, and I just have to say that, you know, you come in here and you just feel like you're in your living room. You feel like you're home. That's what it is. I came in 1991, and Chris Gerwin, who's you know, our esteemed steward now, he was my sponsor, but he couldn't make it to the meeting, so I actually forget who stood in for him. But you know, I'm very proud to have Chris have sponsored me. Remarkable place. They took me in under the wing, and you know, moved through the ranks, etc., etc. But I'll never forget, and I'd like to tell a story about the Four Horsemen. Okay, we called them the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse because you came into the bar when these guys were here, and it didn't matter what you were doing. They ran the place, and it was the old bar where they had the little corner, and the bathroom was off in the corner, right on the side there. And so you had Walter Grew, who was the steward at the time. You had Mike Malloy, who was, I believe, president, and then he was past president. He is a president, but then he was past president, but he was still hanging around. You had Harry Wesley, and then you had Cliff Chase, who was a social member. He wasn't a full member because he wasn't Catholic, and I'm not even sure he was Irish. But you know, so you got these guys hanging around the bar, and the young guys, and you couldn't get in there, you know. I mean, they ran the place. That was it, you know. And so if they liked it, you were in. If they didn't, you were out, you know. And so you couldn't. You know,
to me, it's not so much about individualism. It's about the camaraderie. This is a band of people that I have never been closer to in my life. I clean toilets. I wash floors. But the bonding with people down here is better than it's close to like a family thing for me. This is the one thing I look forward to at the end of the day, to come down here and enjoy myself. And you've caught me at a particular time that I'm not articulate, but I love the place. And that's that. That's all it's going to be, all right?
a place I hear tell. Where fishermen go if they don't go to hell. The weather is fair and the dolphins do play, and the cold coast of Greenland is far, far away. Wrap me up in me oilskins and jumpers, no more on the docks I'll be seen. Just tell me, old shipmates, I've taken a trip, mates, I'll see you someday on Fiddler's Green. Oh, the sky's always clear and there's never a gale, and the fish jump on board with a swish of their tail. They like to leisure, there's no work to do, and the skipper's below making tea for the crew. Wrap me up in me oilskins and jumpers, no more on the docks I'll be seen. Just tell me, old shipmates, I've taken a trip, mates, I'll see you someday on Fiddler's Green. When you're in dock and the long trip is through, there's pubs and there's clubs and there's lasses there too. The girls are all pretty, the beer's all free, and the bottles of rum hanging on the tree. Wrap me up in me oilskins and jumpers, no more on the docks I'll be seen. Just tell me, old shipmates, I've taken a trip, mates, I'll see you someday on Fiddler's Green. Oh, I don't want a harp nor a halo, not me. Just give me a breeze and a good rolling sea. I'll play me old squeeze box as we sail along, with the wind in the rig and the sing me a song. Wrap me up in me oilskins and jumpers, no more on the docks I'll be seen. Just tell me, old shipmates, I've taken a trip, mates, I'll see you someday on Fiddler's Green. No more on the docks I'll be seen. Just tell me, old shipmates, I've taken a trip, mates, I'll see you someday on Fiddler's Green.